Hello! The intro was a little nod to one of my favorite comic artists, Adam Ellis. If you have not seen this comic, relatable. So for a lot of people, me included, vintage style becomes a lot easier in the warmer weather, like spring and fall and summer. But then in winter, sometimes it gets a little bit challenging. And I've gotten a lot of questions on how I keep warm and still dress cute and vintage in the winter. So I wanted to make a video. And that, my friend, is what you're watching right now. So I've made some notes, because if you think I can remember more than one bullet point, then you have not been on the channel very long, because I can't. And what I'm going to try to do is go through kind of body parts. Sounds really creepy. Sections of the body. No, that's still kind of creepy. Well, whatever. Let's roll with it. Let's do it. What I'm going to kind of do is go through sections of the body and what I do to keep myself warm in the winter. So I work in Boston and I commute. So that means very cold winters and very blustery and windy and very snowy. So obviously your health and safety in the extreme cold is much more important than these tips. So use your personal judgment. If you feel like you want to wrap up a little bit more, then definitely do. Vice versa. It's ominous. So what I think I want to start off talking about is kind of the underlayers of what you're going to be wearing. So for me, on especially cold days, this means adding leggings to my outfit or tights or really long socks that go up most of my leg so that my knees are not exposed to the elements. So in addition to those more lower body layers, you can layer up on the top half too. This includes kind of basic things like cardigans, sweaters, turtlenecks, and blazers. For me, this is very, very important because while my commute is very, very cold, when I get into the office, it is a sauna. So that means that if I'm stuck wearing a turtleneck or a very long sweater, most of the day you will be able to find me sitting at my desk like. So it's very helpful for me to have a cardigan or a blazer that I can just take off and have a cooler layer underneath. I don't know what this was. Cool. Tip number 2. Body part number 2. I don't know. Legs. That's so weird. Well, we're just gonna go with it. So this would include skirts, maxi skirts, trousers, and anything else that your heart desires. I will say, if you do look at vintage photographs of the ladies during the winter time, it honestly makes me kind of cold just looking at them. I'm sure a lot of them had nylons on, but a lot of their legs are left exposed. And I'm assuming this is because they didn't spend too much time outside and it was mostly just going from place to place. So that's why I think it becomes a little bit harder when finding inspiration for vintage winter items, because there's not a lot of reference. There's totally tons of reference photos for spring and fall and summer, but when it gets to winter, it's a bit of a gray area. Some of the most warm items that I've found are my wool skirts, and then obviously my skirts that reach the floor or close to it, and then my trousers. Now wool skirts can be a little bit itchy, but I found that if you do have a slip or tights or leggings underneath, it definitely decreases that. And then obviously maxi skirts, which reach the floor, are amazing, and I've been trying to get a lot more of those, not only because they block out the wind and the elements, obviously, but they also kind of give me an 18th, 19th century vibe. I mean, essentially you're just wearing a giant blanket. And of course, trousers do the same thing. Now for me, whenever I wear trousers, I usually wear my boots, which we'll talk about later. So if you are going to be wearing trousers, just be conscious of what you're going to be wearing on your feet. Next up, tip number 3, body part number 3, your feet. Now honestly, this is one of the more important parts for me because my feet get real cold real fast and it's real annoying. And again, if you look at vintage photos, you really have to hunt to find photos of women in winter boots, and that's usually when they're shoveling or out in the snow. So it seemed to me that a lot of them still just wore high heels or Oxfords, which if it were me, in restless dreams I walked alone. For the most part in winter, I wear my knee-high boots, which are Breckels, I don't know. And I got mine on Amazon, and they have saved my calves so many times in the winter. Now, if you did want to wear your flats or Oxfords or any other type of shoe that you wanted to, I would definitely suggest tights. So I feel like once your feet get cold, you're kind of done for. I will say when it gets snowy, which Boston is very known for doing, it gets a lot tougher. And what I do, and which I think a lot of people do, is I just wear my winter boots, which aren't particularly vintage or anything. And then sometimes I just wear those all day. But I know some people have kind of clunkier and less comfortable winter boots. So what I suggest doing, and which is probably not new news or anything, but bring a pair of shoes to change into once you get to work or wherever you're going. Winter boots are a bit tougher to find in vintage style, again because there's not much to base it off of, and sometimes I think they get to be a bit more expensive. If I break that code someday, I will be sure to let you know. Next, and probably the most important, tip number 4, your coat. Photo, no. Beautiful words. Now, I say this is the most important part because obviously, if you get the right coat, it's going to be covering most of your body. And for the most part, if you get a vintage looking coat, then you're pretty much good. At least that's how it is kind of in my case. So the coat that I have and have had for 3 years now, I believe, is this vintage riding coat from Laura Ashley. I want to say it's from either the 70s or 80s. When it comes to coats, for me, the longer you can get it, the better. I love this coat to death, and it was a little bit expensive. I think it was $180 on eBay. But here we are 3 years later, and I've only had to do minor repairs on it. And they are a bit harder to find, so I definitely suggest searching for riding coats and princess coats. Now that being said, do not be afraid of reproduction sites either. Collectif, I know, has a ton of really great coats, and yes, they are a bit expensive, but they last you a really long time. And tip number 5, to top it all off, is your accessories. So this can include scarves, hats, gloves, all that good stuff. For me, the scarf that I wear is an infinity scarf. If you're not going to be wearing any winter hats or anything, I think a scarf can come in handy. Make sure that you get a scarf that is wide enough that it can kind of wrap around your head, and it can also look very vintage when you do that. But also very practical, which is what I'm all about. Next is gloves. This is pretty straightforward. Pretty much any modern gloves can look vintage. Hats are a little bit difficult, especially if you've curled your hair or have an updo or anything. So a lot of times I opt out for a hat. I don't want to lie to you, a lot of times I do look like this. Pretty sure Nick got this hat when he was 16. But gosh darn it if it doesn't keep my head nice and toasty. And it looks like I have little bear ears. Good luck. I hope this was helpful in any way. I know that Boston does not get as cold as some places, so maybe combining all this will bring you some warmth. So that is it. I love you guys so very much, whether you're new or old to this channel. I will see you in the next video. Bye! This looks like some weird yearbook photo.
Don't you forget about me.
Get out. So don't mind if Side note, don't eat an everything bagel before you film. It's a slow morning. Come on, wake up. Wake up. So that means basically not leaving a lot of skin for the wind to seek its way through your coat and into your body. What? And honestly, leggings and tights. Leggings and tights. And honestly, what? Nope. What? Get off. Where are you?
I will find you. And I will kill you.
There's just one piece of hair on my face. I got it, bitch.